selflessness, grit, tenacity, organized execution. This is the mindset and culture at BlueOx Films, and the commitment that co-founder Taylor Kavanaugh has made in his approach to filmmaking. Because, after all, it's not just about the shots. It's the workflow that wins championships. I hope you all enjoy this episode of bscartv with our very special guest, Taylor Kavanaugh. Good to go. All right. Well, appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah. Thanks, B.
So we kick off every episode, every conversation with inspiration and sharing inspiration, because the podcast, these conversations, the mission is to inspire listeners in pursuing their goals, dreams, how they're living their life. And for me, selfishly, I love conversations with individuals who are doing just cool shit in their life, high performing individuals, and I'm inspired by them. And so the whole point of this whole deal is to share these conversations with the world. So to start off, I have a two-pronged question for you. I want to know what's inspiring you both in your work from a filmmaking perspective, and also now what is inspiring you from a personal standpoint. So both of those things, in whichever order, but as of late, what's been inspiring you?
I'd say creative and film-wise, as we've gone through, and the team and I have sort of stood up and expanded BlueOx, we've come to, in a lot of things, when things are sort of organic and small, I think it's typical to like just a normal lifespan where you're birthed, you survive, you start to understand your environment, you start to operate more effectively within the environment, you grow, you start to put more detail and parameters and direction on it. And I feel like our group, with our mission of telling stories, are preteens. BlueOx is like a preteen, where we haven't yet fully hit maturity or those vital stages, but we're like getting there. And as part of the preteen stage, we're more mature than we were a handful of years ago in almost all facets. But one of the key points of maturity, to kind of speak to the inspiration point, is we've kind of gathered this clarity, and you already used the word. I think our mission as a group, when we select what we say yes to and what we have to say no to, and the types of stories, I think we're here as a group, as BlueOx, and certainly me, a small part of that, to tell stories of high performing products, athletes, leaders, teams. Like, I just think that that's what we're here to do. And we didn't know that in the beginning. We were just kind of like trying to stand up sort of a group and get some equipment and like get enough skill sets to survive, to move to the next stage. But as we've done that, I think that part's become clear. And as we've become clear about that, it also sort of self-serves like more and more sort of inspiration and direction. Because when you're aware of like, oh, this is a little bit more of my mission, and our collective mission, you're capable of receiving other sort of, things from the universe, or like your environment or other collaborators, and you pay more attention to those things that are within that sort of spectrum, if you will. So I think that's been a big source of inspiration for us recently, of just like coming to the realization over the last year or two of like, hey, naturally, this is what we gravitate towards, these type of stories and these sort of individuals and this sort of approach, but getting it down to like, but this is what it is, it says on paper, and this is what we talk about to each other. I think that's opened up other areas of like wisdom and inspiration and direction and clarity that we've started to use as a metric and sort of a rule book and a guide to what are we continuing to try to put out in the world, and stories that we're trying to seek out, and if we get when we get approached by brands and other collaborators, like against that rubric of like high performing leaders, athletes, individuals, products. Like if it doesn't hit that, it has to be really beneficial in other areas for us to say yes, because like that's become like a checklist for us. So I think that's it on the filmmaking sort of work personal side. And there's a lot of other stuff, but that's just something that comes to mind. I think on the personal side, I have a young family, and I think that's I think as I've gone through sort of like phases of life, and of course how that's woven with work and how that impacts all this stuff, we're all like individuals that aren't siloed in one specific hour or day or section of our life. Like it all spills out into everything. Right. And for me, I think a lot of inspiration comes from a lot of I'll merge clarity with that. Clarity and inspiration has come from having a young family and sort of being forced in some ways to like prioritize and focus on these things, or like remove other things that I don't have time to spend on anymore. I think I've gotten a lot of clarity from that. And at first, before I had children and got married and sort of like started needing to contribute to other lives and not just my own, you just have a lot more choice and time to like, hey, this is how I'm going to live, and this is how I'm going to spend my time. It just becomes a lot. You become more clear of like, whoa, these other individuals like really need all time. They can use more than I have to give. So I have to like be really specific on where that time comes from. And I think that's been challenging in some ways, but also really beneficial in others. I can see huge benefit and inspiration and clarity from just things as simple as like how my schedule has changed in the 5 years since having kids. Of like, I've transitioned more from being a floating creative that works through the night sometimes and then does this and does that, to like very regimented and I'm not sure which one I'm more comfortable with, but as of late, because the kids go to bed at 7 and like, boom, that's when the clock starts of a little bit of free time. It's been very regimented, and that set me up in a place. And I think a lot of creatives talk about this, like in order to receive ideas and energy and like to do the best work, I do think there's an argument for being very regimented in how you show up every day. And I think having kids and having a young family and schedule with my wife, and of course as mentioned, the required regularity with the kids has put me in that space, and it's taken 4 years or so to adapt to that. Yeah. But now I just feel like I'm getting an additional energy boost and an openness for whatever reason, just to like receiving the good ideas and like being able to like show up for people. And I've never been particularly good with, sort of acknowledging that time is important and being on time, but like this has helped me get there. And it's sort of adapted and influenced how when you're running a business and trying to create new ideas, and more and more people are relying on you, it's like, oh, this comes at the right time, because it's not just my kids who need some dedicated time and regularity and sort of all that stuff. It's now a growing team of people that also need those things. So there's good crossovers there. So I think that's my answer on the personal inspiration of just like having a young family and surviving that, but also like taking things that I didn't predict that are valuable there. So
right. No, that makes sense. And that it's almost counterintuitive, because essentially the more BlueOx has narrowed its focus on what its mission is to do, the more definition that it's given itself, you guys have given it, your team has given it, the more opportunities and maybe even more freedom in a way, which is like a little bit counterintuitive, right? Because if you don't define the mission, like you can do everything, but that actually starts to like constrict you more. Yeah. But then also on the personal side, the more clear you've been about your priorities, the more you're able to take in, which is like, it's counterintuitive to me. Yeah.
There's a little bit of a relationship that exists, an equation that as you're going through building a business, and I think this probably applies to building an organization or a relationship or anything, as you gather resources to do more things, and that's not just monetary, but obviously building a business like is foundationally like gathering monetary resources to invest back in and do other things with. As you gather more resources, ideas, funds, people, everything, new avenues and new doors open and unlock to like do new things. But at the same time, you're trading on the other side of that equation. All of a sudden you're going down a path as you invest, as you acquire more resources, you invest more into a business, an irreversible path that it becomes challenging to reverse course. So there's this trade-off, like when you're super lean, a good example in the film industry would be like, you're a freelance editor, right? You have all sorts of flexibility and thus creativity. You can finish a project and go travel to Italy. You can go do this. And that is hugely beneficial. And it's a reason why, like in the film industry, for example, and a lot of others, the freelance industry is hot and meaningful and highly productive. On the other side of that equation, freelancers don't typically amass significant resources to invest back in and build a huge organization, right? That's why it's called freelance. But if you do that and you gather, resources, ideas, people, cameras, this, that, all the stuff, you're opening up more doors, but you're actually closing others at the same time. So you have to balance that at the same time, and like, what is right for my own personal creative goals? What is right for maybe a group's creative goals? What's right for our responsibility to put good work out into the world? That's for every one person to figure out and like draw their own line and their own path. But like, it's important to be aware, because like oftentimes and I feel the same thing, especially in film, especially with social and all that stuff, it's like, oh shit, that person's doing amazing work. I wish I was there. You gotta be really cautious about that. It's not about them and their work. It's about your contribution to the work that's in front of you. And like, that can only be the focus, because that's the only true way to truly like have the right amount of fuel to go to kind of what society or the industry sees as higher levels of work. You have to, there's no quantum leaps, there's no jumps, you have to kind of struggle and crawl through all of it. So the piece of that trade-off I think is very real, and there's benefit in enjoying both of those. And some people go through a spectrum where they start with a high level of flexibility but limited resources. And that's beautiful and meaningful, and really important things are made and created and done in that realm. And other people sometimes crawl or start or whatever the journey is, like where there's a lot of resources but limited flexibility. And that's meaningful too. I think my own personal opinion is, if you can split the difference between the two and maintain some of this and also maintain some of that, right, is where a really powerful, area lies in creative endeavors and maybe filmmaking and other stuff, and probably other industries as well. But it's a hard trade, because you always kind of want what you don't have, what you had but you don't have anymore, and you always want a little bit of what you might have in the future, and it's hard to, that's the challenge of it.
That is the challenge.
That's the challenge of it.
it's the mental games are just as tough to play as the actual, building of the thing.
Yeah.
And I found in my own entrepreneurial experience, I am not short on ideas.
Yeah.
And that I have a passion with ideas, and not just like sparking them, but I love to like put them down on paper and build them out. And my favorite part is doing it.
Yeah.
I love to have the idea and then do the thing and then look back at the first time where I put that idea back on paper. Like, damn. Like, that gives me a rush.
Yeah.
Like the same type of rush that I like had playing ball. Like, and that's why I've chosen this entrepreneurial path. Yeah. But the more that I've executed on ideas and done things and realized what it takes to bring, because every idea is a production. Yeah. Like whether it's a film or an event, or a podcast, the whole thing, it's some production, and every production takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of time. And then when you get to the end, there's so much that's been learned. Yeah. And oftentimes with my ideas, it'd just be like, hey, I want to do this thing, but I haven't quite yet defined the why behind I want to do this thing, or define the outcome. What is the outcome that I'm hoping from this thing? Yeah. Is this thing to make money? Is this thing to fulfill some type of passion? Yeah. Right? And so I'm learning now as an entrepreneur, as I'm having these ideas, is like asking the questions of why. Yeah. And then once I answer some of those, then thinking about the how.
Yeah.
Versus like in my younger days, which I say younger days, maybe like last year, like 12 months ago, it's just like, okay, idea, let's do it,
Yeah.
And so now it's teaching me to slow down,
Yeah.
which is almost also counterintuitive
Yeah.
because the like slowing down, I think, I'm hoping,
Yeah.
will allow me to go faster,
Yeah.
in a way, or build and scale the ideas and be more impactful with the ideas and stuff. So
Yeah.
there is those balances in there.
Yeah. No, it's ideas are a beautiful thing. I kind of think I've, with a little bit of the recent just maturity and investments and expenditures, just for me personally, I kind of think about like a lot of people, a lot of creatives just, and I think we in general take this notion of like receiving ideas as kind of a given, like it's something that happens up in the biology for everybody, but like it might be, I have a lot of thoughts of that because I'm introspective of like where, I also have a lot of thoughts and ideas. Most are terrible. Some are okay. A few are reasonable to try out. Most of those fail, and then a few actually work. That's a very small percentage. But you have to go through the hard work of doing all that. And I'm really just curious. And I think it has to do with like, other spiritual realms, biologic realms, like all sorts of stuff of like, I have this sort of evolving thought that you have to pay to be in the place, pay by the work, the thought, the regimented, to be in a place to receive the right ideas. And that could be an external thing, but that could also just be internal. Like we have to do the right things to keep ourselves healthy, to be mindful, to have clarity of thought in order to receive, whether it's some other force like delivering some things to us, or it's just our own, matter within our skull, like cooking those things up. And like, I think if you see, especially as a creative, like you can't take your ideas for granted. Like it might dry up. Like if you don't take care of yourself, if you're not inputting the right information to like then sort of rebake in your own form, like it might dry up. Like you can't put trash in your body and expect to be a high performing NFL player, right? It's kind of the same with ideas, and you have to pay for those. You have to watch things that push you. You have to experience things that might be challenging to get to or take resources to do. But like when you pay for those, you're paying the ticket, the admission to like get into on any random time, whether it's on a trip or in the most mundane sitting at your desk day, all of a sudden, boom, holy shit, that's something that could move the needle in what I'm trying to accomplish, that idea. And I think creatives thinking about it that way, where you have to like pay the admission to like, and it's not just one time. Yeah. You're paying the toll on the fucking toll road like every single day. Yeah. And most people, like Marshawn Lynch says, most people can't handle like the over and over and over and over again sort of thing. But if you survive that and you kind of pay that toll, I think more and more, and the line isn't linear, it's exponential. Over time, you're 10 years into a creative career or 20 years, like if you continue to do that, then you're going to get exponentially more ideas, opportunity. And maybe if you stack that with like the additional resources that, in real time and space, like you stack, like that's when, it becomes really dangerous. And I notice with a lot of our young team that, and this is for everybody perhaps, but we all have a real, and I think it's part of being human, is like, we're like living right now. It's easiest for us to understand like right now. Bank account, creative, credits list, this, friendships, relationships, all the good or bad, like to understand right now. It's really hard to understand, especially as like our team is filled with many young creatives of like, okay, you're 25 years old, editor X or director X or whatever. The reality is you're not even going to be close based on statistics and like entertainment industry standards. You're not even going to be touching your most meaningful and best work for another 20 years. You're not even going to come close. And that's not just you. You could be the best in the world at something, but like you're not even going to touch your best. You're not even going to have the opportunity. You're not even going to be in the same ballpark as your best work that you're going to contribute for literally another 20 years. So when you see that, when you think about it that way, you're like, well, today should be less fucks given about the outcome and what I'm posting on social, and way more fucks given on like paying those prices of like seeing the right stuff, ingesting the right stuff, making the right relationships, all that stuff, so that you're just stacking and stacking and stacking, so that you can have a coming out party 20 years from now, followed by 10 of the most impactful stories or this that the world's ever seen, whatever it is for you. That's really important. And I think that it's important for just people to keep that in mind, especially like younger generation creatives, where like you've got time, like you've got a minute, but like that feeling that everybody has of like, oh shit, well, I need to make this really good thing tomorrow because everybody is doing it. Use that, but then fine tune the dial a little bit of like that same anxiousness, like use that as the fuel, but then instead of like worrying about the outcome tomorrow, worry more about like, how am I paying down and like getting more inputs? Because we all, like as a filmmaker, whether you're, an editor or a director or a creative director or whatever, a producer, your own ideas are just reformulations of whatever you might be gifted, but also reformulations of just like what you've seen. Yeah. Whether that's a bunch of TikTok videos, whether it's a bunch of docs, whether that's it's everything that you've ingested and then like reformulate it into your own style. And you have to pay down those experiences and relationships and things and ask the right questions and engage in the right way to get as much into you as needed, so that you give yourself a chance to reformulate things as, quote, new ideas in ways that are meaningful and, can contribute value. So, yeah. Sorry, that's a little bit of a rant, but
no, that was fire. That was good, man. Hey, that was a bar. That was a bar, bro.
It's important for young creators to like keep that stuff in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that stuck out to me, what you were just saying, was it's not just the work that influences your work from an input standpoint, right? It's also about like what you're doing physically, the relationships that you have, what you're watching, what you're eating, what you're, where you're traveling to. Like all of these experiences are cumulative in the way that they inform one another.
Yeah.
It's not just like the couple hours I spend, the few hours I spend at work will help me in work or will influence work. It's like actually how you spend your 16 waking hours will influence your work.
Yeah.
And what you do in your work will influence your relationship with your family. Like it's this big web that I think it's easy for us to think about, because you just think about straight lines. Like, okay, this influences this, like in a linear way, but there's actually this web. And I've thought about that a lot, because I found I run a nonprofit organization and the creative agency, and then there's the podcast and all these different things. And I found that like lessons that I learned with the creative agency helped me to run the nonprofit more effectively.
Yeah.
Like I'm pitching a production to get sold in the same way I'm pitching for a sponsorship.
Yeah.
Or I realize the relationship I'm fostering with a donor is the same, I'm learning a technique I could use with the podcast, how to have a conversation. Yeah. Like, and all these things are like, the experiences are cumulative. And I heard there was a conversation, Warren Buffett and Jay-Z, they had a conversation with, I think it was with Forbes maybe, but it was cool, man. Jay-Z flew to Omaha. Cool. Yeah, bro, it's great. You should watch it. It's a good interview. Yeah. And I think it's like David Forbes, one of the Forbes family, was interviewing Warren and Jay-Z in Omaha, Nebraska. And I think it was Warren who said, like, all of your experiences are actually cumulative. Like for Jay-Z, he's building a record label, but that's also helping him as a businessman, as an entrepreneur. Yeah. And working as a businessman is probably helping his music as well. Yeah. And I've taken that with me and really like, okay, all of these inputs are influencing all of the outputs.
Yeah. to put it back, we share some football experience, you at a much higher level, but I remember in college, my buddies and I in the locker room, one day we're sitting like close to the end of the sort of the experience senior year, and we're like, we had this thought, and I'll tie it back around to this because I think it's connected, is most people see high-level athletes as the expression of what they do at the Olympics or at 16 games in a season or whatever. And that's valid. Like, that is the most public expression, but that's not the actual thing. That's the outcome. That's the result. The real thing. And when we sat in the locker room at Oregon State, when I was finishing up there and we calculated, it was like some insane sort of statistic of like, for every 575 hours of training or practice or this, it resulted in 1 hour of on-field competition. Wow. And then if you take that down even more of like, for your time on the field, for me, it was much more limited. I was getting in where I could get in, but like a few special teams and this and that, like the time invested was so severely weightier than the time on field and outcome, that when you see it like that, you realize that the value actually, you're just, whether you're at the Olympics or you're, showing up for the premiere of a film, it's all the same thing. Like if you treat that, those are the results, those aren't the actual things. The actual thing to get there is those 579 to 1 hours, or that's the real thing. And I think, another thing that I think is a secret weapon for our team that we've kind of baked into just how we all operate is the human condition. Like generally, we're primed to avoid sort of challenge and difficulty, right? A lot of us, it is a select few, and it can be anybody, but by default, it's more a select few. And you see this with people that are conditioned themselves, athletes and other high performers, to like really embrace the difficulty, the shittiness of any challenge, like an early morning, a this, a that. It's like, I mean, to be a good documentary filmmaker, to go through the mundane of watching every good documentary of like that, those are very challenging scenarios. And we're generally conditioned to, I kind of hit a wall here, so I'm gonna like go over here. Like it's few people that like truly just like bang on the wall over and over and over and over again until it just like, and people give up too easy, I think. Give up on daily hardships and like longer term things. And I think part of our secret weapon is like, I've been too stupid and stubborn to like give up on some things, and you just kind of wear people down, and you keep coming at it again and again. And before you know it, you're like, oh shit, actually, I went from like being a nobody in this space to actually having some cred and like having created some stuff. But like, you can't do it. And I think it's just a universal law that you have to do it over and over and over again. Yeah. And again, like our boy Beast Mode says, like, most people are not down with that. Most people don't want to take that, you know? So I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle, because the stuff that we're doing right now at BlueOx, like doing documentary films and these things are so hard to make. They're ungodly difficult to like come up with the idea, to talk somebody into financing it. It is so hard. It's like very, very, very hard. And if any one of these films, like we were talking before we started rolling, like the two things that are coming out, the Air Force Elite on Netflix and this HBO Dream Team one that just came out, if we just had kind of stopped at the first instance of like, oh, this might be a lot of work, or this might be hard, or we had stopped at this feels impossible, they wouldn't exist in the world. Plain and simple. And I think there's just so many good, valid ideas that deserve to be out there that just don't quite, they get trampled on before they can become robust enough to survive strong winds and people that are out to try to get it, and you just have to go over and over again. It's just really vitally important. So just surviving that and leaning into like, oh, this feels hard, good, it should. Like, because that's the first hurdle of many of like, weeding out the people that may or may that won't contribute to the in filmmaking, like the overall conversation of it. It's like the ones that do, I think across, if you had 1,000 different people, and you've probably seen this with a lot of your guests, like the ones that are out there creating the stuff just kind of have this understanding and acceptance to lean into some of the hard stuff and to do it over and over again and to pay that price over and over again. And then finally you like, you know, kind of emerge of like, oh, I guess, you know, I guess we're doing it now. And so
if it was easy, everybody would do it.
I think that's truth.
You talked about being in the locker room, and you went to Oregon State, right? Played 4 years at Oregon State, and we're actually connected. I shared this with you on the phone when we first spoke, that the Kavanaugh brothers, I remember middle school, high school, I knew about the Kavanaugh brothers, bro. You and your brother Connor, both absolute ballers at Lincoln High School. I knew more about Connor because he's your younger brother. And so when I was like old enough to really be like watching football, listening, him and Jordan Polk. Oh, bro, they were so cold, man.
Combo.
Yeah. Actually, bro, I see Jordan Polk up at Jefferson High School. He has a track team that he
I'm gonna
coaches.
have to catch up with him.
Oh, man.
Jordan's
Good dude.
such a beautiful person. Yeah.
Great dude. And so I knew about y'all as ballers, and then your brother was at Portland State, and you were at Oregon State, and you'll walk on. Bro, lunch bucket award.
Oh, you dug deep.
Lunch bucket? Is it 4 years? 4 years running?
I think so.
Bro.
I think so.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So you talking about, I've heard you say survival a couple times. You talking about, you know, like willing to do the hard work. I mean, at Oregon State, being a walk-on and getting that award every year, playing special teams. You very much lived that long before the filmmaking career began.
No, I think I owe a lot of that. Connor, my brother, was an excellent athlete, like a football player of the year and all sorts of stuff. He's a better, for sure, certifiably a better athlete than I was. And that Connor Kavanaugh to Jordan Polk combo was deadly. It was fun to watch.
Yeah.
So fun. And Jordan's that's amazing to hear. He's in Portland doing his thing. I'll have to catch up with him. But you know, I think anybody that participates in sport or anything else that requires sacrifice and challenge, and also like sort of a giving of oneself to something larger, a team, this, like, those are challenging things that not everybody like sort of leans into. But if you do find a way to do that, they give back in ways that you're not currently able to estimate. And for me personally, I think I was just really fortunate and lucky, maybe in some ways, like missing a couple screws of, like, you know, where most people are like, I'm sane and I'm not going to put myself through this. I think in other ways, like mostly in sport and the you know, high school football and baseball and wrestling and, you know, track and all this stuff, and then in college and in sport as well, like I just accepted, like, that in a lot of those environments and scenarios, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna show up again and again and again, and like it. I think again, I had a screw loose or two, but like I eventually started to see how if you pound on these things long enough, then you eventually just kind of craft your way into, you manufacture your way into belonging in a space. And you cannot estimate. A perfect example is just like all the things you were mentioning, just how these all things are just the interconnectedness of our decisions and relationships, like is very significant. And a good example is, like, I think back now, I don't spend a lot of time thinking like retroactively, but when I do, one of the most, you know, fun, and it's also like in some ways concerning thing to think about, like, what if I hadn't have done this, today wouldn't exist. I think about like the activity and investment in sport and some of the relationships that was had there, and how those, when I started my own filmmaking sort of creative entrepreneurial journey in, you know, 2012, 2011, if I didn't have those relationships from spending 4 years at Oregon State, or even going back before that, the very first opportunities to do a documentary series with when my brother was at Portland State, and the Portland State football team wouldn't have existed. Wouldn't have known the Nigel Burton, the coach there, like it just wouldn't have happened. And like every other single like decision tree that went out to all this started with that. And there were a couple other like small things like that in similar ways. So like, I think back on that, it's like scary. Like, oh, what if I didn't just stumble upon this? Or like, what if I didn't keep saying yes despite being a brutal amount of hard work? Like, oh, it would be scary. I wouldn't have this. Life would be different. And I think like you just have to take that to current day and say it's important just to continue like pounding away on something that you believe deeply in. And you just feel the need of like, and if it feels right, it shouldn't be subject to other people's interpretations of, you know, well, you can't make money doing that or this or that. Like if it feels right, you should just keep pounding away. And yes, there are some realities that you need to, you know, pay for gas and this and that, and we have to work through those things. But like when it feels like powerful and right, whether it's filmmaking, creative, sport, like walking onto the Oregon State football team, like continuing into multiple seasons in the NFL, whatever it is, like you just kind of have to, you just have to keep going.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ties back to sport that I'm really blessed and fortunate and grateful that kind of played out and the way they played out, and maybe in alternate universes, like they played out more in my favor or in alternate less in my favor, but I'm happy and grateful with the things that happened to at least get to, you know, open up the doors that led to, you know, doing stuff now, and, you know, it's important. So
yeah, I know what kind of guy you are, man. I see that lunch bucket award immediately, bro. I said, "Oh, he's that guy, huh?"
You know, I think the motive on I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, but I am proud of those. It's fun. It's fun, and I think I am not that motivated. If I was just an individual, I think I'm a small percentage of the person that earned those awards and those lunch bucket awards you're talking about. It was basically at Oregon State, like who basically works the hardest is the tenacity to like come again and again and day after day and everything. That's essentially, it's like bringing your lunch bucket to work, like a construction worker or whatever.
Yeah.
And but on my own, I don't think I'm capable of that. It was the gathering of 100 different individuals from all over the place that in some ways, in a healthy way, I was competitive with and wanted to outperform, but in other ways, and both are valid, of like, I'm just motivated to like show up and perform for them. And there was just this really unique atmosphere that was amplified even more. And I'm sure it is even like way more in the NFL, but in the college football locker room, you all kind of really believe in this one thing. And this was like kind of pre some of the other things that exist now with NIL deals and everything. And it felt just like really unique of just everybody's trying to win and like go to the next and go to the league, or like, but it all goes through everybody just like, you know, busting themselves to like, you know, put in the most amount of effort to like open those opportunities to beat number 1 USC and be a top 25 team, and you know, for a certain selective, you know, lucky ones go play at another level. But like, it was the motivation through that even enabled me to, you know, do any of that work and to be, you know, humbly recognized by the rest of the team of like, yo, TK he goes pretty hard, and like he's a, you know, good example in some ways of like, you know, how to, you know, maximize some of the pieces. So
no, I mean, team culture plays a huge role in that. And it's we had a really, you know, I was at Cal for 4 years, and then I had a year at Stanford, and you know, the culture at Cal wasn't bad per se, but the culture at Stanford was just, it was a lot stronger, more consistency with the staff and stuff. And so when I was driving over here this morning, one of my boys called me, who I played at Stanford with, and also a walk on, earned a scholarship, receiver, like engineering type mindset. It's very similar to you in some ways. And he just randomly called me. We was just chopping it up, and he's like, "What you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I got a podcast today." He said, "Oh, who's it with?" It's like, "Oh, Taylor Kavanaugh." "Oh, crazy, bro. Let me tell you, he was a walk-on at Oregon State." And when I told him
I'm humble.
the lunch bucket award 4 years straight, and I was like, "Bro, that's basically like our team technician." Because at Stanford, we'd give out a technician award. And immediately he's like, oh shit. Like he knew that, you know what I mean? I didn't even have to tell him what the Lunch Bucket Award was. He's like, oh wow, okay, this dude's a real deal.
Well, I don't even know if those last couple of years I truly earned it. I think the team just maybe felt obligated that, hey, if it's gonna be 3, like we can't, we got to just gift him the 4th. So maybe I earned it, maybe I didn't. Either way, like it's beautiful to be, part of a squad and a team, big, small, at whatever. It's like, it's such an important part, I think, of the human experience. And this Netflix doc we did, Air Force Elite, that's going to come out in May on Memorial Day, like an incredible example of that. And that's some of the, you talk about early the inspiration pieces, like that's one that should be mentioned. Like this documentary that we did following these amazing, the best fighter pilots in the world, they come together and they have to fly F-16 jets within inches of each other. The amount of trust and practice and care and system that goes into trusting your teammates to do this job in a way that literally won't crash all the planes is like really remarkable. And there's essence of that obviously baked in throughout sport, throughout good and bad, company, team cultures and everything. But like this latest expression of this really cool doc, as mentioned, Air Force Elite, that we got to do, was such a remarkable sort of like vivid, very acute life or death example of that. It was cool. And it's cool to see those parallels from, my limited background, semi-limited background in sport that feels like a long time ago, and seeing that refresh, like, oh, I forgot, like what that really feels like to depend, in some cases, life or death for your health, your knees, your, ability to like depend on, the person just inside of you to like do a specific job and do it well so that you can then do it. That's just such an important piece of like any organization. And when you talk about culture or high performing teams or whatever, that's a foundational piece, is people that are willing to accept that challenge and, take hits and all the stuff to allow the next person to, make the tackle or, make the play or fly the jet or whatever. Is like, you can't do it without it, because you basically shut off the valve of any potential as soon as everybody is more self-focused. And you some of that is important, right? We have to be self-motivated and all this stuff, but like, you shut off the valve more and more when individuals are more focused on like themselves, or at least the majority. Once you cross maybe 51%, and it's like, hey, I'm 51% concerned about myself and only 49% concerned about like the work we're doing as a team, you turn off the opportunity to really like make these huge strides. And you see it in the Air Force and these amazing squadrons and NFL teams and, and everything. And that's one piece of the journey that I am just really grateful to have observed, in mostly good and in some poor ways, of like, hey, here's what it looks like, for better or for worse, to like organize a group of people, apply some resources, have a mission, try to like get everybody up and going, to like put physical things in place, to buy cameras or this or that, or build software or whatever. And like, without the good examples that I've had in my past of like seeing coaches and teammates like really, here's how it looks, I wouldn't possibly have been able to even come close to apply those things to, hey, what does it look like to build a small, burgeoning production company or be an entrepreneur of any sort. Like, they're literally, it relies on those experiences that just happen to fall in my lap. And, I just saw it through and through to not say no to every day. So, but it's amazing to see these high performing teams like that. It's remarkable. And that's how real work and change gets done, whether it's the federal government, the military, teams, whatever it is. Like, when you have teams operating like that, that's how the real work gets done. And it doesn't always get celebrated or acknowledged all the time. So
100%. When you left Oregon State, you graduated, you were done playing football, until then BlueOx came to be. Can you fill in those years?
So I did an engineering. Matt, my now business partner, who's been confidant business partner throughout, since college up until now, and continued into the future. Matt Wilcox, he went to Jesuit and played basketball, went to Oregon State. And,
Okay.
So we were in engineering together and sort of had latent creative passions and skill sets that we sort of in bits and pieces explored in college. And it was right after college, graduated, took a big long trip through the South Pacific, and we started kind of storytelling people in American Samoa and Fiji and Tonga and New Zealand, Australia, all these places that we traveled. And that was kind of the first impetus of like, oh, this is actually really cool. Like having a camera, engaging with people using that tool, capturing it on some sort of medium, and then like putting it together in, Final Cut Express or Final Cut Pro that we used at that time, like in the Final Cut days, putting it together. And we're like, oh, whoa, this is really exciting. Like, it's really cool. You can like use these different tools and things to like evoke emotion and like share somebody's story. And it's really beautiful to like meet some random hiking guide in Fiji, and like you go up to the top of a mountain with them, and like you hear about all this shit that he's been through, and you capture some of it and then include it in a little bit of a story. Like, it's just really, it's a beautiful process. So we took a trip right after that kind of spurred a lot of that. Matt and I both worked as engineers for almost 2 years, like doing like proper engineering, like building buildings in Seattle and, in Washington State. We did that for a little bit, mostly just using our engineering salary that was pretty good to buy cameras and like kind of continue to fulfill this little kind of ambition of tinkering with cameras and editing and everything. So we really just use it to support that. And then it was around like 2012, we started our first company. We left sort of the comforts of having an engineering salary and having a nice condo and that sort of stuff, and like kind of did some version of the typical story of like move back in with your parents and like put a desk in your room and like that you grew up in, and like just start trying to piece some things together. And it was around that time that we started, doing little bits and pieces videos. I mentioned like the Portland State video that we did. There's a series somewhere floating around the internet that was some of that early work. And we just started then chipping away in 2012. And we went through kind of one company and sold that back to our other partners and did a couple other and that was all the learning. That was like paying down sort of the experiences and who do we want to partner with, who's right, who's wrong, and like what kind of work do we want to be doing. We were just kind of paying those things down, so that 3.5 years later, 4 years later in 2016, when we're like, hey, we're gonna do this just Matt and I, and like this is the right situation and the right setup, and we've proved ourselves right in some ways, learned some hard lessons in others. We want to focus mostly on like sport storytelling, and here's how we want to do it. We were just better prepared and like humbled in some ways, more confident in others, and then started what kind of became this iteration of BlueOx Films in like 2016. So, there's a lot in between there, but that's kind of like the narrative of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
Right.
So
How'd BlueOx get the name?
it was as simple as at the time, so when BlueOx started, we started it out of a trailer or an RV. We bought this motorhome basically for one of the first projects we ever did, traveling around for the Pac-12 doing this show, The Drive, which I think we've talked about.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, it was a limited budget, and it was with a really amazing collaborator, director that was at the Pac-12 then, Michael Tolajian, who we actually worked with on this NBA Dream Team doc on HBO. So it just shows you like how relationships just continue to evolve. But Mike T, as we call him, amazing filmmaker and producer, showrunner, brought us on and said, hey, I have this, we want to make HBO Hard Knocks, but we have about 1/20th of the budget. Like, what do you guys think? And the answer was like, hell yeah. So we kind of engineered and developed this idea of like, what if we literally live out of a motorhome for the entire football season? We just drive from place to place and spend 5 days with Cal and then Stanford and here and there. And like, we just drive in between. And it was such a unique experience because we literally parked our motorhome in the stadium. Like we had, like we were parked outside of the Rose Bowl for like a week. So we'd be like running the Rose Bowl stairs in the morning and stuff. And so we started BlueOx in the motorhome, basically traveling around, and we started doing other client work, and so we'd be editing from the road and everything. And then eventually that project kind of gracefully concluded. We did some for the basketball teams as well. And then we moved it kind of into a more proper sort of office space, and
Yeah.
had a minimal amount of resources that we had kind of collected just through those early projects to say, hey, we can afford a lease, and got a couple other people that were going to have help, and it kind of went from there. So
Yeah. So BlueOx is the name of the RV? Or
I didn't hit that one. We were busy on the RV. My ADD brain is just moving.
okay.
We were busy on the RV, and
Okay.
it was simple as we got to bring somebody else in to think up a name for us, because we're unaliased
wow. Is
right
that
now.
right?
So it was simple as like, let's have this branding company draw us up a quick website, and by the way, while you're at it, like, what's a cool name? And they came back with like 3, and BlueOx was the least worst one. And we're like, all right, this is it.
That's crazy.
And then when I think inspired by, you know, there's like American Tall Tales sort of big.
Right. Yeah.
I assume that was the thought behind it, or at least that's what I associate
Like Paul
with
Bunyan type situation.
type shit. So
Type shit.
so I assume I was like, okay, like that's
Yeah,
okay.
that's cool.
That's okay. And then it just, you know, and then it's one of those things like you make an early decision, and now it's too baked to really change. So like,
Bro, it's solid. It's solid.
it works. So
Based in Portland. BlueOx is based in Portland. We are a Portland-based podcast. Why Portland for you?
well, I think at the beginning it just is a fortunate benefit that kind of, like a lot of things, kind of falls in our lap, and if you are you're smart about it, you learn to appreciate and identify and adapt and sort of build on the things that we're just sort of blessed with. And I think Portland is a lot of that. I was driving across the bridge on the way here, and like the beauty and the livability of Portland is really remarkable. Like there's insane value in other cities, New York, Atlanta, and LA and everything, and Portland's obviously a much smaller market in some regards, but like it's so livable, and it's such a beautiful city, and there's huge benefit too. There's powerhouse sportswear companies that reside and have invested here, and there's a whole ecosystem around people that help provide creative and support and production and all sorts of stuff for those, and I think that's really remarkable. So you have a niche, but like a really meaningful group of creative organizations, sports-based, you know, history and companies that reside here. And so speaking from just like a business perspective, like that's made a lot of sense. Like BlueOx has had a really long and fruitful and hardworking, meaningful relationship with the Nike brand of families. And like we've built a lot of our company through working really hard and doing really good work for them. So I think that's been just really, really beneficial, and a continued purpose to continue to invest here. And even when, you know, whether people outside looking in believe in Portland or not, like it's been obvious for us to continue to, you know, do that. And then I think personally, it's just, there's been, you know, I don't know all the stats and figures, but I know like my dad's side of the family has been in Oregon and Portland for a long time, and there's sort of multi-generational sort of comfort and component to that, and have friends and family and everything. And I think so there's that sort of like, you know, personal retroactive looking, there's the current portion of, there's just a lot of good work and business and story and talent and people in Portland that I believe in and I love and appreciate. And then forward looking, I think I, you know, have an extrapolation of that, and a very small component that BlueOx we can provide is adding to that, in a vision of a high performing, highly diverse, highly creative workforce, and a group of people living and working in like really meaningful high performance sports stories and organizations. Like that's all possible. Like the components are there to continue to like deliver and build on that sort of idea. And it's why we BlueOx, like we have some remote team members. We have about 6 people down in Venice and LA that is really valuable and really cool. But the vast majority of our editors and camera people and like producers are here in Portland and kind of circled around all of that. And hopefully like in a really small way, we can continue to participate in bringing outside talent, because most of our team is from all over the US or other places.
Yeah.
And continuing to bring people to Portland to not only contribute on specific work and creative, but interact in the community and add value there, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I believe in Portland, and I have huge gratitude, for just happened to be placed here. My parents moved here, showed up here, and just try to express gratitude just for like the amazing livability and beauty of Portland, and access to coast and mountains and different biodiversity and everything. It's like, it is really cool. So
Can't beat it, man.
sweet.
Can't beat it.
Yeah.
bscartv is a billboard for Portland. Man, being from the soil out here.
Yeah.
And the range of responses I've gotten throughout my life since I left Portland, when I tell people that I'm from here, at first it was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I hear Portland's cool. Then like more recently, are you okay? Is everything okay out there?
Yeah.
And from my perspective, I agree with everything that you just said. I think it's a great city to be in and to work in, to come home to.
Yeah.
The more I've been traveling and coming back, it's just getting home. It's, oh man, fresh air.
Here's my theory. If you want to understand a microcosm about a city, you don't even need to go into the city. You just go to the airport. Is the airport dialed in? Like, how do the people at the front desk talk to you? Like, the airport is the first line,
bro. That's so real.
To understand what you need to know about a city. And I'm not saying good, bad. I'm not saying like it's a loose connection. But like there is something to it. How many people, how you're gonna be responding when you order a coffee or ask whatever, like there's something to it. And for people that don't know or have any sort of negative sentiment about Portland, roll through the Portland airport if you haven't been there recently.
Nice.
That's my piece. Is like I'd go there to hang out. I'd go there to do work.
Yeah.
Get a coffee and do work. It's like that beautiful. So shout out to the Port of Portland folks that did that remodel if you've rolled through there recently. But that's my theory, is like, you want to learn the first step about a city, hang in the airport for a little while and do some talking and searching around, and you're gonna learn a thing or two about that geography. So
that's so real, bro. When I landed in New Orleans for Super Bowl, I rented a car from Enterprise.
Yeah.
And I got out there, maybe it was a little bit late. It's like in the evening. And there weren't many people in there. So it was just like the three folks. It was two folks on the Enterprise side, and then one folks maybe on the, the Avis side. And they were just all chopping it up. And I walk in on a conversation of, they were talking about hot Cheetos, and somebody was like, yeah, bro, hot Cheetos dipped in ketchup. It's fire. And that was
it. That's your first insight into the culinary scene.
Yeah, bro.
In New Orleans. Like, that's it.
And they was like, they were just having a ball. They like did not pause their conversation with me. They like gave me great customer service, but continued to chop it up and laugh, and then like kind of included me in it. Like, what you think? Like in the New Orleans accent, I was like, okay, yeah, I fuck with this place.
That's fire.
Yeah,
that's fire. No, I love and appreciate Portland, and I just think there's so much to offer, and I'm bullish on it. So
yeah. Changing gears. So I had a coffee with Neil a couple weeks ago.
Oh, dope.
Yeah. Neil's a cool dude. It's funny, we actually have some mutuals from his time at University of Georgia.
Nice.
Yeah, so he was like on the football staff doing the video stuff.
Yep.
And a couple guys I played with, I played with Ledbetter in Miami and Davin Bellamy in Houston, and he's cool with both of those guys, like real cool. So it was, we met at the family friends night, like, bro, let's chop it up, have a coffee.
I'm glad you guys did that. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's cool. But he was telling me about like how process-oriented BlueOx is, and how process-oriented your mind is. Because I told him about like our podcast and just asking for some tidbits, and so the process orientation. But then also, boom, I go through the website as I'm doing some research. I'm going through the fridge tab on the website. Well done. Love the fridge tab on the website.
Yeah.
Flowing through.
Yeah.
And something sticks out to me. I see workflow wins championship. And I was like, oh, bro, that's fire right there.
That's a sticky one. People connect to that one.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's truth. I don't know where really that comes from. I think you know, I think to make creative things, you got to have range between the ends of the spectrum of like pure creativity with no necessary regard to time or money or anything, just like the idea that's on one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is like pure execution and like workflow. And I think you have to have a little bit of both of those. And I think we've built a team with people that, if not in the beginning, are at least open and willing to accepting that filmmaking, creative is really both of those. And when you look at the expression of filmmaking and content creation, it is one of the maximum, if not the pinnacle expression of merging art and science, merging these two ends of the spectrum, process and creativity. And we see it more and more as we get a little bit deeper into doing documentaries and working for really, pristine platforms. And like, it's 1 minute about the idea and the evolution of the character and these very soft, moldable things. And the next minute, it's like, these legal checkboxes need to get done. And it's all part of the same project. Or like, you're a day behind on your visual effects, or like highly technical, literally like math-oriented, how do we build this spreadsheet to better reflect this information to support and deliver on the creative? And like, filmmaking is this incredible mixture of both of those. And traditionally, I think, the way that the industry has handled that is you have different people come in that have different left brain, right brain, different people with different brains handle this, and they talk to each other to get along enough to like allow the project both to be legally cleared and highly creative. I think what we've attempted to do at BlueOx, and I appreciate Neil P, our boy Neil Peterson, sharing that. I think I take it as a compliment, but I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to talk with him. I'm joking, but like, it's both sides of the spectrum. People like, I think people acknowledge like this is a value that I bring to the team, but also like a real pain in the ass.
He was commending you. He was like, bro, this dude Taylor is a monster. He talked a little bit about your morning routine. He was like, you gotta ask him about the morning routine. Like, he's locked in. So he was giving
it's
you
both,
flowers.
but having that range, because filmmaking, documentary, branded content, commercials really require both. And I think it's a beautiful equation and a balance that exists. And if you have a willingness and enough of sort of that left brain and right brain to allow those things to coexist, and then identify patterns of how they can work better together. And that's the essence of, it is a real passion. And I really, really believe that people who think that it's just pure creativity that is going to express itself automatically are limiting themselves significantly. The workflow, the producing, the production management, these are multiplying factors to the creative idea. And with one or the other, the organism can't exist. But if you have a very strong, solidified, passionate, creative concept, idea, story that you're after, and then you don't just like go linear of like 1 unit of creative, I need 1 unit of production or workflow. It's multi-factored, it's exponential, where you take the origination of an idea, a shoot, any creative aspect, and you say, well, instead of 1 unit of production workflow or process or workflow wins championship style mentality, I'm gonna apply 10 units of that. Well, your creative idea just got 10 times better. Like, and it's mathematics. Like it just is. And I've seen it at BlueOx. I think we have a whole, process and list by, how we number projects and all this stuff. And we're on project, we've done 765 projects, I think, today. 765. Some got canceled, some are shorter, some are longer. Like I think our Dream Team documentary is in the 300s. Our Air Force Elite Netflix one is also in the 300s. So it goes to show you, like, it took about 300, 400 projects from beginning those getting project numbers to actually seeing the light of day.
Damn, okay.
So we've done, and I think one of the benefits that maybe Neil is speaking to is one of, I think, the skill sets that I've realized and I'm really grateful for and have worked to kind of do the hard work to develop further is pattern recognition. Over 700 projects, you start to identify, we're doing this in the same way, the same time, on these specific projects. And then you say, well, how can we maybe save literally 10 minutes on the next project that's like that and reapply that 10 minutes, I'm being extreme with it, call it 10 days, right? And reapply that. Instead of copying and pasting this information from here to there, we're going to reapply all that time into making the idea better or applying that to somewhere else. So I think I'm really passionate about it because I see as I've finished sort of like ensuring that BlueOx is at least going to survive for a little bit, the next big area that I see as a competitive advantage, and it's sort of the biggest problem and challenge of the day that I'm working on solving and getting out of the way so we can find the next ones to go do. It's when we have, employee 35 come in, that's a producer or editor, they come in because they meet a threshold of like passion and quality and a talented human and a really good human to come into BlueOx. But beyond that, they know almost nothing of like how we specifically do things. And there's infinite number of ways to make a podcast or a film or whatever, infinite number of permutations of how you do that. I think we've found a way through pattern recognition and obsession of those things that is like relatively efficient and in aggregate produces good work. But how do you communicate 8 years of experience and 750 projects to somebody coming in? You can't. It's impossible. Normally, that person would have to spend sort of, even if it's an amplified time scale, like 2, 3, 4, 5 years before they actually understand it. So I think the solve to that is, to the extent possible, to the amount that you can have the time and resources to invest to solidify these things, is to build a playbook. Like the Workflow Wins Championships is like, here's BlueOx's playbook. We're not going to tell you how to like stem the route and adjust to the ball and go out and make plays, but like generally, here's the playbook for how we get a brief from Nike to make a sizzle, or get a brief from Wieden & Kennedy to go edit some campaign or whatever. Like, here's kind of how we do it. It's a checklist. It's a process. So we've slowly built those things, and you can't do it all at once. I didn't even know that was important for the first 8 years that we were doing it. It just didn't even register. But like the last 4 years, and especially the last couple years, it's been like, oh, now I've seen a lot of these patterns and sort of the pattern recognition applied with a little bit of sort of what, I enjoy of like it sort of a, entrepreneurial engineer type mindset of like, how can we just make this better for the people coming in? And it really is that. The base foundation thing is I just enjoy building things and seeing things run smoother so that the work can be better. But I think the most foundational thing is like, I'm just highly, highly, highly passionate and focused on making all the team members in our team really fucking good at what they do, and giving them every possible tool, giving them all the right support and culture and all the different things, giving them the right push and challenge. And the workflow, the playbook, is a really big piece of that. I know that a really talented producer coming in can either operate at 50% of her capacity or 95%. And that 45% differential has a lot to do with what I personally and our team gives to her in terms of a playbook and information and like, hey, here's learnings, here's do's and don'ts, here's all the pitfalls in one aggregated place. Of the 760 projects that we did, and 300 of them could have gone better, here's some delineated stuff of like, consider not doing what we made the mistake on project 200 here on project 800. You know what I mean? So I think that's the essence of it. And I think workflow and process and that sort of stuff gets a bad sort of boring rap sometimes. But for me, I think it's just been a big unlock, and I think a secret sauce for us is like, we understand it. We care about it enough. We're willing to like go through, because it is hard work, like putting your mind to that and doing that. But we've done enough so that the two most important outcomes can become real, being amplifying the work and also just giving people a better playbook. It's like it's a new player. Like you see it all the time in NFL, NBA, all over different companies. Like the same player goes from, a challenged organization to a really good one, and all of a sudden like they're different players.
Yeah.
I think it's the same. I think it's the same thing. And there's probably parallels to that of like, well, what's different about the other organization or the other franchise? Well, they might have a better offensive coordinator, or like the playbook might be better. There also might be different. I think there's a lot of parallels that probably exist there in companies as well. So you have people that maybe are underperforming or not being pushed or don't have the right playbook to fit their skills or don't have the right coaching or support or whatever, and then they go somewhere else and it's a fit. And not saying that like BlueOx is right for everybody, you know, because it's not, but like for the right people that, you know, fit kind of our check boxes of things, like when they come in, there's a big difference between just them doing their own thing based on their experience and like, hey, do your own thing and go make plays on the ball, but also like, here's some ideas of like how to put yourself in position with the playbook to like go make really good stuff, you know, and it's kind of proven. So I'm passionate about it. It's kind of nerd shit, but
yeah, no, I'm vibing with it, bro, because it's a big part of what I've been thinking about lately too. I'm thinking about like there's a certain point where you know the unbridled creativity gets you to a certain point, and then it's like, all right, well, to push past this, you know, glass ceiling or threshold to do more effectively, you know, and be passionate about and not be, you know, fucking just have it be too much. It's like there's got to be some infrastructure. So it's kind of got like, all right, well, let me put energy back into the infrastructure and the process. And so I was telling you about what I've been reading. I've been reading a couple books, a book a month. 4-Hour Work Week. I've just finished. Oh, bro. And like building a business around process, not around people. Which like he's on the extreme of it, right? On automating everything. But there's something to that, right? It's like if you just want to have all the people, you know, carry all the luggage from, you know, one city to the next. Yeah, you can do it. You'll get there at some point. But instead, if you make some railroad tracks, you know what I mean? Put this stuff on the railroad tracks and have it go, you can get there much quicker. But it's
powerful.
I'm in that place. And so when Neil was sharing some of the process stuff and I saw the workflow and that term in itself is something that's like I pulled from from Tim Ferriss in the 4-Hour Work Week. Like, what is the workflow? Like, how manual does all of this need to be? How steep is the learning curve when a new person does this project, or when we go do a project that looked like the last one? You know? So
it's all platform to work from, you know. It's I care about it a lot. I actually think one of, you know, we're still in the mode, and sort of my time is really spent building BlueOx, and I don't think that's going to change eventually. I'm anticipating that one of the bigger goals that I'll have is, and this is sort of tangential and sort of the expression of it we're doing right now. We're doing some like kind of software exploration and plays with the theory of like, is there a sort of a best possible route on how to produce a documentary or branded content or a podcast? Like, I think the answer is yes. And we're working on like, how do we take all this experience that BlueOx, that seems to have worked. We're not the end all be all. We're not perfect, but I think we've done enough that it's like, oh, okay, overall, this works. How can we sort of put that down into a software that basically enables producers and other production and other creatives that are organizing everything that needs to be organized around a creative idea, that gives a structure and a playbook, not just as an internal tool to BlueOx, but eventually I think we will take that outward and be like, is this valuable to other people? So we're tinkering with that, and I have a software team, you know, we have a software team kind of building that for BlueOx and testing it. And, you know, that's the latest expression of sort of workflow wins championship sort of mentality of like, you know, honestly, we have, you know, somewhere between 35 and 45 projects at a time in different realms of production or creative or whatever. And like, even though we have a good team, it's not automatic that all those we have 46 projects today, all those 46 projects are like cared for and all remember, like, or set up or have a Google Drive folder for everyone. Like, that is all normally really manual effort. So we've started building just these very small pieces of like, hey, can we click a button the minute we have the next documentary that we need this for, and can it auto create all the documents that we need, whether we use them or not? Can we, you know, how can we information share between those documents so that, you know, the shot list is informed by all these other documents and the creative, you know, so we're identifying these patterns of that we are manually doing a lot of stuff, and then slowly but surely, because it is time and thought intensive to sort of take playbook sketches on a whiteboard that the OC is doing and like put that into a galvanized solid playbook.
Yeah.
And that playbook, I think for us, will continue to be just using off the shelf tools, but maybe more and more like building for our own team and our team and in our creators, and maybe beyond that of like putting it into a digitized, software based, format that can help producers and can help people like, hey, I've never produced a podcast before, but I'm like really smart and driven and creative. Like, could a product like this give you, boom, here's the steps. You need these specific legal docs. You need this. Like, you should create this. Here's a template for the schedule. Like, could that be valuable? Could that unlock a next quantum leap in like creators? I think it's possible. And that's like, I think the biggest hurdle that I think is his passion now, but will continue to be a passion of like, man, the richest form of information share, the most meaningful one that we have ever in the history of 500,000 years of evolution and probably forever, will be the sharing of stories. Like, it's an insanely powerful medium. It's the same power that boosts a league because of a TV show. It's the same thing why you go out now. We mentioned Portland, and like there was some storytelling that went on around Portland and everything that was negative in nature, and now a lot of people have that story. Like on both sides of the spectrum, it's the power of storytelling, and storytelling will always come from humans. Like the origination, because storytelling is about the human experience, and it will always be. That's what will always be interested to us, because we can't change 500,000 years of evolution. But there's a lot of people walking around with incredible stories. The next amazing documentary, or the next amazing Nike basketball commercial, or the next amazing feature film, but because of workflow, or they're not able to get to the starting line.
Yeah.
Their idea is just as fucking good as anybody else, but they maybe don't have like the one right document that you need to put your ideas in to be taken seriously by a platform, or they don't have the one right connection to some attorney or sale. Like these are things that are overcomable, like solvable hurdles to unlock, like put more power in the hands of more creators and IP generators to simply potentially make more good stuff.
Yeah.
In addition to a wider volume of better work, in addition to a higher quality of it. And so we're tinkering with those ideas and like kind of building them in software format for our team, but maybe going to share that with more people, because that's a huge passion that I have, like whether it's on our immediate BlueOx team, but I think eventually my ambitions will become more of just like, let's make BlueOx as good as it can be with some competitive spirit in there with other teams and everything, to just like, how can we maximize just like, here's everything that BlueOx developed in a very user intuitive software format that like everybody could go like at least get to the starting line that we got to make the best stuff. Like would love to do that eventually. So
Democratize storytelling.
That's a simple, elegant way of putting it, maybe, because your storytelling is not currently democratized.
Yeah,
it is not. It is and I've seen that more and more. And I think like storytelling has made huge strides in terms of the diversity of voices. I think there's some really amazing strides that I've just witnessed and am proud of, just watching, and proud of counterparts in very tiny ways attempting to help like, sort of extend those as well in our little tiny area. But like, it is not a democratized environment. And that's one, because there historically has not been a wide variety of voices saying, we want to tell this story. There historically has not been a wide variety of people holding cameras or chopping it up on a keyboard editing. It just like that just has not been the case. It feels like there's been good steps there, and it feels like there's overall like a real value recognition of like, oh, whoa, like a lot of people have a lot to offer in filmmaking in general. So I think that box is checked. The other, or at least continuing to be pushed ahead, has some progress and momentum and real potential, and it's like moving in the right direction. The other box that checked is maybe even more subliminal than just like sort of the diverse voices and creators piece, which in some ways is easier to see than this, it's just like most people, no matter where you're from or what your socioeconomic background is, like if you don't have the right access to the right intellectual property of how do I take a really good idea in my mind and like put it into a camera or go out and shoot it, there's very clear sort of structure in place for making, imagine your goal is to participate in Make a Netflix documentary. There's very, very clear, not only hurdles, but walls that exist to how to get an idea there, or how to do the right things with the right skill sets, or how to connect with the right people to get the right brains on that. That maybe is even more of a challenge. And of course, I think it has to do with like people who historically have had access to, wealth or connections or money, like probably are absolutely more likely. But the problem also exists like across the entire spectrum. And that seems like something that is solvable. Like there's micro pieces of like YouTube and Reddit, and some of these platforms are amazing, insanely powerful platforms, but are examples of maybe where it's going, where like you need less sort of information to jump over these hoops, and it feels like it's going in a more democratized environment anyway. And there's both legal and economic support systems for the YouTube model. Like there's all sorts of, amazing metrics now that, YouTube and Netflix are competing for the most viewership across any two platforms in the world. And like, those are two very, very different platforms with different content.
Right.
But like, where do you draw a line in the middle of the average of them and like say, well, which one's it doesn't matter who wins. It's just like these trends are really happening. So I think platforms to put a diverse subset of IP on and creators on is very important, and also getting the right tools in the hands of those creators, of all creators, that can get to the starting line, whether they know that exists or not, and from the starting line navigate the landmines and the pitfalls of how to get something. It's a very powerful proposition, and I think it is solvable, but it takes a group of people to like have that experience and identify and be willing to like kind of open source some stuff.
Yeah.
Because the commonality right now is like, let's not say how we do anything so we keep our secret sauce so that we can be incrementally more successful than somebody else. Like, so the biggest vision is just like increasing the volume, breadth, and quality of like all the stories that, we're sharing. So I think there's tools that can help with that.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. Software development, automation, democratizing storytelling. These are all dreams for the future of BlueOx.
Maybe, or BlueOx adjacent. They're definitely dreams for me, and super lucky to have an amazing, current, nimble, small team that is, like, I found a way to replace what just Matt and I were doing in a motorhome like 5 years ago, and we figured out how do we, and it's not always perfect, it's not always easy, but like how do we basically replace ourselves so that the other people can have the credit and the opportunities and the experiences and everything. And like, that hasn't always been easy, but we've been able to do that. And now that we're, I think, continuing doing that more and more, the goal is to replace what I'm giving to BlueOx in leadership and strategy and creative and everything, like replace me here so that I can move on to the next thing. And I think, that's just my own personal, approach and appreciation for sort of entrepreneurial spirit of like wanting to move to the next thing. And I think that's my greatest value to other people. Just like, serving other people is living somewhere close to the idea stage where you kind of plant the seed and then you like get it just big enough to survive a couple storms and being trampled on, and then let somebody take it over. I think that's, as I've personally matured and just identified patterns and what works and everything, that seems like one of the most valuable places that I can contribute to all these things, our immediate team and the work and everything. So I think that's probably going to be the case in the next few years of like, we get our team at BlueOx to a place that's even more robust and solidified than it is now, and attract the right, leaders that we have now and external leaders, and get them to, and have a playbook and a roadmap and all the support and all the pieces that are needed to have it continue. And then tangentially, like, I can go, whether it's, you know, the software or whatever that is, and like go do something that is tangential in nature, that is connected, that's supportive of the overall goal of just making the best stories and continue to find like new parallels and roadmaps to like help with that. So that would be fun, but it's dependent on like, you know, we still gotta do the small things every day to support it sort of resource wise. But yeah, we're lucky. It's a ton of hard work, but I just love the making of things, and it goes back to the workflow piece of just like, I just think it's really thrilling to take random pieces of, you know, material, whether that's people or, you know, ideas or whatever, and like try to just attempt to arrange them and then rearrange them and eventually try to find something that kind of makes sense and starts to, you know, provide function for people.
Yeah.
You know? It's kind of, it's fun. So
yeah, you've done an incredible job, man.
I appreciate it.
Like you've inspired me. I knew about BlueOx's work before I knew that you were running the company or that you founded the company. I didn't know about the connection there, and that the BlueOx's first project, The Drive, that I was at Cal when you guys were doing that documentary. I didn't know that was you. Didn't know that it was BlueOx until, you know, I started doing the research about you. But I've heard about BlueOx projects. I've seen the projects on Nike, seen the social media. It looks beautiful, and the work that you guys are doing. And I read an article with you did an interview with Music Boom or somebody like that.
Oh, Music Bed, probably.
Music Bed, yes, Music Bed. And you talked about you defined what you guys are here to do. BlueOx is here to tell stories about high-performing individuals, products, athletes, entertainers, etc. And you talked about like we don't feel good just like to be in the room with these people. That's not why we're so invested in this work. We are invested in this work because we are able to tell stories of human excellence and the dedication that each of these individuals have put into their craft deserves to be taken very seriously and with care. And I read that and I was like, damn, that's well put, man. Really well put. And for me, being an athlete and growing up an athlete and dreams to go play professionally and then being lucky enough to do that, and then coming out of that, I realized how critical inspiring stories of those people, those athletes, those entertainers, any of those high performers, how critical they were, those stories were for me in my journey to keep me going, to say, oh yeah, that's possible. Oh, I got more to go, you know? And so I want to thank you for doing that work, you know, for the future of, you know, young Brennan Scarletts who are coming up now and seeing Anthony Edwards pass the rock, which I watched, damn, bro, like that's the type of shit that says, okay, kid watches that, oh, I'm gonna go play in the league, you know? So thank you for telling inspiring stories, inspiring the masses, man. Love what you're doing. Can't wait to see what comes next. And I appreciate you being here on bscartv, man.
bscartv for life, dude.
Let's go.
Pleasure to be here. No,
Appreciate you, bro.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, man.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Peace. Leave us a review. Drop a comment. What do you want to see? What do you want to hear? Who do you want to hear from? We would love to hear from you.